I am Kate Shemirani. I am 56 years old. I am a nurse trained and qualified of 36 years. I'm a trained and qualified independent nurse prescriber. I have never had any patient complaint and I have never had any questions over my competence. I worked many years in the NHS, I worked many years in the private sector, and I currently am self-employed. I'm a personal nutritionist and I also work for an American radio as a health and wellness expert. My biggest achievement in my life is that I'm mum to 4 young adults. I have the right to a fair trial. I have a right to body autonomy. I have a right to be heard. I have a right to exercise my human rights. I have a right to always feel safe. I have been vilified in the press with lies, with mistruths, with edited recordings. I have had my right to reply removed. I have seen in the comments sections calls for me to be executed, to be killed, to be murdered, all left unchallenged. I have been sexually harassed recently by members of my legal team that I have now dispensed with their services. I have been bullied, I have been blackmailed, I have been harassed as a witness, I have been threatened to be taken down if I do not behave myself. I have been threatened to be killed, to be martyred. I have had my address printed in the public domain and had strangers come to my home when one of my daughters was here. I have felt at times very bullied and almost in a hopeless situation. I had a 17-year marriage and I suffered lots of domestic violence, physical, psychological, emotional, and also many other aspects to that marriage were horrific. I am still traumatised by this, and I have felt that same trauma again at the hands of our legal system and the police. I have been physically assaulted by a police officer in view of several hundred police officers, and this can be found on YouTube with over 3 million views. I am physically very vulnerable. I've had a double mastectomy and a reconstruction for cancer. This assault has had an impact on my physical health and well-being, and this harassment, bullying, blackmail, coercion has had a serious effect on my health and well-being. All of us deserve a right to be heard, and we all deserve the right to a fair trial. I do not have a legal team. I have not seen all of the evidence from my 6 criminal charges. To date, I have been unable to recover those funds from the barrister who is no longer representing me at my request. That barrister was to speak publicly to a mainstream newspaper, even though at that point he was no longer representing me. Again, I was vilified in the press and mistruths were spoken. If this has happened to me, and it's happened to many before me, it can happen to you too. I have a right to a fair trial. I have a right to exercise my human rights. I have a right to body autonomy. I have a right to practice my faith as being a Christian. I have a right to exercise all of my human rights, and I have a right to be safe. I'm a mother of 2 daughters. I don't want them to ever feel as I have felt, alone, scared, vilified, nowhere to turn. Because if this can happen to me, as it has to many before me, it can happen to you too. I don't want to be the next victim, and I don't want any woman out there to be either.